broader issues going on in the economy, whether it's with automation, whether it's globalization, that may be having a powerful downward impact on wages. It also speaks more broadly as to whether the Fed is being premature in raising interest rates and whether they ought to let this recovery go on for a little bit longer.
Of course, one of the big topics is immigration and the jobs that immigrants to the United States get when they arrive. Can you give us your thoughts about the trends that currently exist, what kinds of jobs they get, and whether these new policies will benefit, as the president has said, American workers?
Well, I think the bill that the president touted the other day is the wrong approach, and that's not just me saying that. That's the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, it's the IT industry, it's Senators McCain and Graham. We are in a period right now in the United States where population growth really is at its lowest since the Great Depression, and that's not only because of low birth rates, it's because of more people retiring, and so we need more labor in this country. And yes, we need more high-skilled labor. We need to replenish and revitalize the IT industry in this country, but we need low-skilled labor as well, and Senator Lindsey Graham said it well. In a state like South Carolina, you not only have high-tech healthcare jobs, but you also have retail, you have food service, you have agriculture that all needs more people. And so artificially cutting in half legal immigration is not the right answer to creating economic growth.
Chris Liu, thank you so much for joining us. Chris Liu is a senior fellow at the University of Virginia Miller Center. He was the Deputy Secretary of Labor under former President Barack Obama, and he comes to us from Virginia. We're going to talk more about the incredibly muted market response to this jobs report. It seems to be more of the same later on in the program. But first, we're going to talk about the big battle raging in the investment management industry, passive versus active, with activist investor Paul Singer saying that passive investing is devouring capitalism. That's all coming up next. This is Bloomberg.
Business, finance, and the latest news affecting world markets. Powered by more than 2,600 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Grand jury seated, leaked calls. I'm John Trout. Reports say Robert Mueller is using a grand jury as part of the Justice Department's special counsel investigation. Correspondent Evan Perez explains more leaks are expected.
Even though grand jury is supposed to be a secret process, people who receive those subpoenas don't have to abide by that secrecy. They can come out and say what they talked about, what they were asked.
Leaked transcripts to the Washington Post show President Trump pressured Mexico's president to remain quiet about the border wall and verbally sparred with Australia's Prime Minister Turnbull, who today dismissed the slight.
I stand up for Australia's interests. He stands up for America's interests. We have a warm relationship. You've seen that.
The Labor Department. The unemployment rate slipped to 4.3%, matching a 16-year low.
The growth of Americans' paychecks, however, remains stubbornly slow. Average hourly pay rose by 2.5% from a year before, the same annual pace as in June.
There's Scott Carr. Investors on Wall Street are reacting favorably. The Dow is up 16 points. A woman became troubled when she caught a glimpse of a man's smartphone conversation. That peering led to an arrest.
The young woman, all we know about her is she's a preschool teacher in Washington State, was seated behind 56-year-old Michael Keller, who was texting his girlfriend. Keller was holding his large smartphone up to his face using large font, which enabled the woman to see he was texting about molesting children. We're told disturbing and detailed. She used her phone to take a picture of his electronic conversation, told the flight attendant who called police. San Jose Police Sergeant Brian Spears.
And I let her know right off the bat upon seeing her that she is my hero.
Keller was arrested as he deplaned. His girlfriend, 50-year-old Gail Burnworth, was the daycare provider of the 7- and 5-year-old victims, was arrested at her home. I'm Jim Roop.
Harvard University's incoming freshman class is a true origin time in the Ivy League school's history. Minorities will be the majority. I'm John Trout.
You spend more time at your job than just about anywhere else. That's why we created Game Plan, the weekly podcast hosted by Bloomberg reporter Rebecca Greenfield and editor Francesca Levy. Listen as they inspect the way we live our lives at work. Everything from office jargon to the strategic value of being nice to colleagues. The Game Plan podcast, available every Wednesday on the Bloomberg Terminal, Bloomberg.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and whatever app you prefer to browse your favorite podcasts.
Trade around the world and minimize your costs to maximize your returns with Interactive Brokers. We are your gateway to the world's markets, offering direct market access to products in more than 100 markets in 24 countries with transparent low commissions, low margin loan rates, and best price execution. For more information, visit ibkr.com/save more. That's ibkr.com/save more.
Broadcasting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Radio Plus app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up on Bloomberg Markets, billionaire investor Paul Singer warns that passive investing is in danger of devouring capitalism. What does that mean? We'll find out. But right now, let's find out what's going on in the world. We've got Greg Jarrett in the Bloomberg newsroom with a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Thank you, Tim. Stocks are edging up following that jobs report that was better than most had expected. The Labor Department says U.S. employers added 209,000 jobs in July. As a result, bond prices fall. Yields are up, though. That sent shares of banks and financial companies higher. The Dow moves further into record territory. Michael Jones at Riverfront Investment tells Bloomberg he's not concerned with the Dow surpassing 22,000.
We believe that the advance in the U.S. equity markets has been pretty well supported by a barn burner earnings season. We like to track earnings relative to expectations from 6 months ago because it kind of strips away last-minute earnings expectation manipulation. And by that measure, 56% of companies are beating their expectations from 6 months ago, and an astonishing 70% are beating on sale.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. Right now, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 0.2%, up 38. That stands at 22,063.85. S&P 500 is up 0.2%, up 5. The NASDAQ is up 0.2%, up 13. The 10-year is down 18.30 seconds. The yield is 2.28%. West Texas Intermediate's up 0.5% now at 49.28 a barrel. COMEX Gold is down 0.9% at 12.6250 an ounce. The yen is $1.11 even. The euro is $1.1747, and the pound is $1.3041. It's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Let's get some more Bloomberg Markets with Lisa and Pim.
Thank you so much, Greg Jarrett. Well, it is another day, and another billionaire hedge fund manager is coming out to trash the ETF industry. Paul Singer, who is the billionaire founder of Elliott Management Corp., warned that, quote, passive investing is in danger of devouring capitalism. What may have been a clever idea in its infancy has grown into a blob, which is destructive to the growth-creating and consensus-building prospects of free market capitalism. Well, here to defend the blob that is the ETF industry is our own Eric Balchunas. He is our senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. And Eric, first, I want to ask you, I have a feeling that you do not think that ETFs are devouring capitalism. Is there anything about Paul Singer's argument that rang true with you?
Yeah, so there's a one hand and the other. So on one hand, Vanguard and BlackRock, which are ultimately passive, they own almost all the passive assets, are the top 3 holders of 95% of the S&P 500 companies. So they are becoming a bigger and bigger deal. And if we extrapolate the assets 10, 20 years down the road, you could see a world where Vanguard alone owns 30% of the stock market. At that point, I think we would government at that point. But right now, in the top 3 holders of all the companies, they collectively only own about 13.5% of the stock market. Because here's why. People forget this. Mutual funds, which ETFs are included in, are a minority owner of the stock market. The rest is households, institutions, pensions, all people who are active, essentially. So you are definitely looking at a rise of passive within mutual funds, where you're having more and more people put their money passively. And I think that speaks to a bigger issue, which is that active has lost the hearts and minds of investors. And I think that's part of what you're seeing. You're seeing they feel threatened. They're losing. I'm sure he's getting calls from people saying, why don't I just put my money in SPY or a separately managed account that's passive? And it's tough to defend. In this market, going with free exposure, essentially, it's just hard to combat that. And I think active in the 80s and 90s got potentially a little too